Hey folks, welcome back again. This is Eric Mishi, Executive Director of SAVE, Suicide Awareness Voices of Education. Happy Friday. And we have had some incredible conversations all week this week with great organizations, local, state, and national, talking about the things that they're doing as a part of our overall combined efforts to work together to help make this country a better, safer place, a healthier place for mental health, and also a place where we can also make an impact in helping folks prevent suicide. The first two conversations we had today were really a tremendous opportunity for us to have a conversation about how can we do some work on social media to protect young people from the harms of social media while still giving them the opportunity to benefit from the benefits and the good parts of social media. And so great conversations. And so, the next one we're going to have is we're going to talk about the need to focus on a part of the country that I think gets lost way too often, and that is in rural America. And so I'm thrilled to have with us the chairperson of the Farmer Angel Network, Dorothy Harms, who we're going to spend the next half hour talking about some of the unique challenges facing America's farmers and why the crises in rural America is leading to increases in suicidal ideation and suicide, and what can we do to help them. Dorothy, good morning, and thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Eric. Glad to be with you this morning.
So let's start with why don't you let us know a little bit about your background?
So, farm girl, grew up here in southwestern Wisconsin, married a dairy farmer, and have farmed with my husband, Don, for over 42 years here on his family farm. Don and I were dairy farmers most of our career. We have since transitioned our farm from dairy farming to offering a farm stay lodging and agritourism, as well as direct marketing grass-fed beef.
Okay.
And one of the things that really drew me to Farmer Angel Network was during that transition time, because farmers oftentimes, it isn't just a job, it's their identity, it's who they are as a person. And I was truly concerned for my husband's well-being during that time.
So let's talk about that a little bit. So let's talk first about what are the unique challenges facing rural communities and particularly farmers. Um, what can you share with people who may not know much about farming, about what makes the challenges to farmers and the ag community in this area of mental health and suicide so challenging?
Well, I think, oftentimes the media, portrays the challenges financially that farmers have. They don't have a lot of control oftentimes for the prices they receive. Obviously they don't have control over the weather. The markets themselves can be pretty up and down. But I think in dealing with that, in the hard work that's involved in raising animals and growing crops, it oftentimes can take a toll on folks because sometimes it doesn't seem like they have, any hope of it getting better. And I think here in the rural areas, there's just I think the farmer mentality is, I can do it myself. I can fix it myself. And too many times, I think farmers get themselves in a place where they can't fix it themselves, but they don't know where to turn. I think here in the rural areas, finding good mental health care can be a challenge. Finding a counselor, I think one of the things we see quite often is finding a counselor who understands the culture of agriculture, who can understand that farmer is going to put his cows and his crops ahead of his own well-being. And it's getting a recommendation of, well, you need a better work-life balance, really isn't helpful for folks like us that are out here in the country.
Yeah, the idea of work-life balance if you're a farmer really doesn't make any sense, because your work and your life are all balanced together. There's really not much difference between the two of them.
Exactly, exactly. And I think, when a farmer makes the decision to get help, that feels like they just can't do it alone anymore. Like I said, finding a counselor that understands what that means is really crucial. There are here in Wisconsin, we're very fortunate to have, through the Department of Ag, the Wisconsin Farm Center, and their efforts in providing resources to farmers and helping them with those first steps. They have, first advisors with finances, veterinary care that can kind of maybe help problem solve some of the challenges that they are facing. But they also have counselors on hand that they can tap into, and they have people that are manning a 24/7 call center to be able to connect somebody that may need to reach out for help.
Yeah. So in conversations about, as we look at particular demographics that are particularly challenged by suicide, we look at certain occupations. If you look at the construction industry is one of the highest, as far as an occupation, has some of the highest suicide rates of any occupation anywhere in the world. And partly, it's the demographic is it's largely men who don't want to talk about their feelings. It's a dangerous kind of work. You get injured, and sometimes with that injury, you kind of self-medicate, and substance abuse issues become a real challenge. Access to firearms, we know that that's also a big challenge. So so let's talk about the work of the Farmer Angel Network, because you're one group that's working to help prevent farmer suicides. And so talk a little bit about, how did this organization start? What are the kind of things that you're doing? And what are the kind of things that people need to understand in terms of the resources that organizations like yours need to have if you're going to be successful in this fight?
Oh, sure. And just like you mentioned, a lot of those same instances, the comparison to the construction worker population is very, very similar. Just again, being very independent, sometimes having access to lethal means. I mean, a lot of farmers are also hunters, so they certainly have guns, if nothing else, just to take care of the pest on the farm. And so one of the things that I think we really have felt is, how do we connect directly to farmers? Oftentimes, I feel there are good efforts put forth by public health, by university extension specialists, but how do we connect directly to the farmers to get this message out? And so our group was formed to try to make those connections. And so people, along with having agencies, like I mentioned, public health, extension, local healthcare professionals. We have farmers that are involved in planning the activities that we have to really, give our perspective and what's going to resonate with the people that we know. So we have kind of taken it to county fairs, to dairy breakfasts. We have ice cream socials. We have hosted family movie nights in which we pay for farm families to come and enjoy a night out and just take a break from the farm. And all by using that opportunity to provide information, resources to families for mental health. I think just helping people by being willing, and we have several people who have lived experiences who are willing to talk openly about that. It just kind of opens the door that, wow, they shared about things that I think about or I wonder about, and it just kind of makes it okay and to talk about how they feel. Again, it's a kind of a whole new realm for a lot of farmers. Just
Yeah.
a lot of folks are not that touchy-feely, but I really have been impressed in some of the places that we have gone, where I've had people that I wouldn't have expected come up to me and ask questions about our work and about mental health.
Yeah, it's interesting because we talk about the generational aspect of people's ability and willingness to kind of talk about their feelings and their concerns. And there's very few places that are more generational in terms of kind of passing on a farm than a farmer's family, right? You have farmers who oftentimes it's second, third, or fourth generation families, and those stressors that come from that, first of all, have got to be enormously challenging, because you don't want to let the previous generation down, right?
Right.
Which has its own pressure. But then you take into account, again, all those things that you simply can't control, right? Earlier this week, I had a conversation with a friend of mine who's a farmer in Kansas, who was going through and reading to me, the current commodity prices and all these things. And, for a kind of city kid, not quite understanding what commodity prices necessarily mean, can kind of get a little bit of a blur. But ultimately, there are things related to the cost of production and how much money you're going to make. And if the economy's up, the economy's down, all of these factors are extraordinarily challenging and complex when you're dealing with a single farm family. When you're dealing with multiple families, and then you're also dealing with the associated ag industry that's tied to that, it becomes even more challenging. And so you're dealing with an industry, right? You're dealing with a business and an economy that isn't like in a city, right? It's far flung, it's all over the place. So how are you dealing with communicating and reaching out to folks in a way that makes them understand that you've got resources that can help them?
Well, I thanks for putting on our website. First and foremost, that is really, we know the internet has great power, right? It has the ability to reach a lot of people. And so, going first to our website, we have quite a few different resources that people can tap into there, and not only just in here in Wisconsin, but national resources as well. Our use of social media, I think we've built up over, I want to say, thousands of followers already that are really kind of paying attention to the things that we're doing and the messages that we're sharing. But I think we still kind of go back to what we can do to build community within our local area, and bringing people together. Gone are the days of card parties and thrashing crews, and those opportunities that farm families got together and shared stories, shared their challenges and their hopes and dreams. And so how can we recreate those opportunities for community? And that's kind of one of the things. Well, we have developed our own community model for serving people here in our locale of Wisconsin. We've already had another part of Wisconsin that have reached out to us, and we are helping support them to build the same kind of community model. And that's really our hope, is that this becomes a grassroots community model for other areas across the country, mm-hmm. to help come together and help support their local farmers.
So how important are things like rural broadband in helping to get information and knowledge out to farmers, whether it's telemedicine or even to make these kind of connections in places where farmers may be hours away from other resources?
It's not only the rural broadband, but it's also self-service as well. I just for an example, here in our own farm, my husband has a phone that says 5G on it, but unless he's on top of the hill, it's not doing him any good. So while telemedicine provides some great opportunities, it provides again, somebody not having to take time to leave the farm and go into town, change their clothes, get cleaned up, provides privacy for the farmer. His truck isn't parked in front of the local mental health therapist, that people, or what, kind of see that. It's really becoming more important that that access, through for mental health resources is, available through the rural broadband and cellular service.
And the issue of, so we talk a lot about the issue of lethal means safety, right? The issue of, how do we make sure that we are reducing access to lethal means without taking things away from people, right? So, for example, we know for a fact that the number of people who, that the percentage of people who die by suicide in this country by firearms is 56%, right? And that percentage is likely higher, with farmers, because guns are such a part of the fabric of the community, right? For whatever reason is. So how do you have conversations with farmers when it comes to those kind of topics? Because whether it's firearms or it's pesticides and things like that, how do you have conversations with them about, folks, what we're trying to do ultimately is protect you, and in a situation where there may be a challenge to somebody, where they're struggling with mental health, how do you have those conversations in a way that it doesn't feel as though somebody's coming in trying to control their life?
Sure. Some of our really valuable partners in this is the Veterans Administration. We've got partners through the Toma VA. Their program has a Safe Lock program, and so providing some of that information to families. Oftentimes it's really the family that kind of most needs the information, because they're not sure how they help their loved one who is struggling. The other initiative that we're seeing here in our county is public health is going to the local gun shops and getting them to sign on to agreement, a safe gun storage. Again, it's a little difficult if guns get taken away and go to law enforcement. There's a whole, paperwork and rigmarole and stuff. If there's an easier way just to kind of remove guns from the home of your loved one, and just to put them away for a temporary time with local gun owners who know how to keep them safe, I think there's some opportunities there. So again, it's just kind of helping those families have those resources, and letting them know that could be available.
Yeah, I'm also scrolling on the screen here. It's just a reminder again that one of the great kind of evolutions in supporting everybody's mental health, and particularly if you're in crisis, is being able to call or text or chat on 988. It's a free resource. It's an opportunity for folks, if you're in crisis, you just need somebody to talk to, or if you happen to be somebody who has someone's in crisis and you need some thoughts on what kind of local resources, you can call or text 988, and that's a resource that is free. It's 24 hours a day. It's 7 days a week. It's 365 days a year. It's confidential. The people on the other end of that conversation are trained to work with people who may be experiencing crises. We talk about the farmer themselves and their mental health, but there's also a report that I saw recently clearly about the concerns that we have for rural kids' mental health, and what we're starting to see there as well. And so as you have conversations and you work with your partners, how concerned are you about kind of what's happening to rural kids in this environment that we're living in right now?
Well, definitely concerned, and we talked about kind of the farm family and how it impacts everybody there, right on down to the kids. It's if they're a farm family that's struggling financially, it's like, nope, sorry, we can't get you that new thing, or we can't go to that where all your friends are, because we just don't have the money right now. So we work real closely with our Future Farmers of America groups. Again, trying to tap into the groups that are connected to agriculture, that are that have the target audiences that we want to, get their attention. And so, yeah, we've had some great communications with our FFA as well. But yeah, definitely that's part of, what our work is trying to kind of keep everybody in the family kind of, focused.
So you mentioned that there have been other groups that have reached out to you to talk to you about your work and trying to replicate that work in other parts of Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the things that you want people to who may be looking to try to figure out how they can be supportive and helpful? What are some of the things you would encourage people who want to get involved, who want to be able to be a part of supporting your work and the work of others that they could be doing?
Well, I think first off is really kind of tapping into your farm population. Again, like I said earlier, I think there are good intentions by some of our public agencies, but you really have to have farmers be at the forefront of this to really kind of give some credibility, I think, to farm folks, so they go, oh, that's somebody I know, and if they think that this is something we should be a part of, then they'll pay attention. So I think that's really important. I think, like I said, we have found that you have to be kind of open to groups that maybe you wouldn't necessarily expect. We have our county land conservation department, and they've got such a great network with farmers who are practicing conservation practices like rotational grazing, cover crops. Kind of having, again, figuring out the access of, where do you have, people that have connections with farmers. On our current committee, we have a dairy nutritionist who is on farm daily talking to farmers about, the care and well-being of their animals, but she's also pretty vigilant about the well-being of the farmers that she works with as well.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective too, right? Which is, while we're talking about making sure that we're taking care of the animals and the livestock, if we're not taking care of the person who's responsible for taking care of those, the rest of that really just kind of it goes by the wayside. And so,
Yeah.
and you don't think about things like, how do you make sure that you're taking care of your nutritional needs, that you're getting enough rest, that right? We kind of jokingly talked at the beginning of this conversation about work-life balance and how if you're a farmer, there's really not, that's kind of doesn't really make much sense. But this idea of making sure that you are taking care of your physical needs and your mental health needs has to be a critical part of being able to be successful in the business, isn't it?
For sure. One of our efforts has really helped us connect with healthcare providers and providing trainings like Safe Talk, QPR, and having it be put on by folks from the ag community that are trained as trainers. It's just because we really want to get the message to healthcare providers is like, be open to ask the farmers about how they're doing, because if they're there at the doctor, it has to be pretty bad. They're not just coming in because they got a sliver in their finger, and you might have to listen to them talk about their dog first or about the weather before you really kind of get to the point of why they're really there. And just kind of helping encourage our healthcare providers to lend that listening ear. If they're practicing in the rural areas, they that really has to be part of their bedside manner.
So in your work, if you were to kind of think about kind of the future, what is it that you're the most concerned about as it relates to right now in the future and farmers and the ag economy and its impact on their mental health and suicide rates?
Yeah, I think going forward is kind of trying to figure out how do farmers still can have the ability to farm. There's a lot of pressures, governmental pressures kind of, that they have to work against. And, I don't like to go too far down the political rabbit hole, but, we got a farm bill still hanging out there. Those are the things that are just going to make it harder for folks to figure out, how can I continue to farm? So I think we're seeing today that getting bigger and bigger isn't necessarily the answer either. We're seeing a return to regional food networks, and where we're kind of seeing small and mid-sized farms finding ways to look at a different way, direct marketing their products to consumers, opening up agritourism. So, we're trying to kind of figure out, how do we have people still have the ability to continue to farm?
Yeah. Well, so as I said at the beginning of this conversation, this half hour was going to go pretty quick, and it's gone pretty quick. I'm grateful for your willingness to share about your work, because again, in the space that we're in terms of suicide awareness and prevention, we see the data, we see the demographics, we see some of the trends with specific communities in this country where we're starting to see crises and stress and pressure, and clearly the rural economy and farmers are facing, as they often do, a challenging economy, a challenging business model. But then on top of it all, are starting to see a significant uptick in mental illness and suicide and suicidal ideation. And so, as we kind of come to the close of this conversation, Dorothy, one of the things I asked you at the beginning of the conversation is, we try to end each of these discussions with some kind of hopeful message to folks that they should look forward to, that is helpful for them to understand, because a lot of this topic and a lot of this conversation at times can feel really, really heavy. But at the same time, there's a lot of people out there like you and your organization that are trying to do good things to try to help people. And so, what would be a hopeful message you'd want to share with people, whether they're a farmer in your community or they're a farmer in Kansas or somewhere else in the country?
I think it really goes back to, taking care of your neighbors, being the person that's willing, and I don't care if you're a farmer or not, you can be in the middle of the city. It's like taking time and checking in on your neighbors, and just, how you doing? And ask the question twice. No, really, how are you doing? And I think our world in general needs to kind of take more time. We get so busy, so wrapped up in the go of life, and just taking the time and saying, hey, I really do care about how you are, and talk to me about how things are going with you.
That's good advice. It's good perspective, and the work you're doing is really good and important work, Dorothy. And we're really pleased that we have the opportunity to connect with you and share the work that the Farmer Angel Network is doing. And so, to learn more, we've got the website up there, farmerangelnetwork.com. Feel free to reach out to them. I know they feel free to reach out to Dorothy if you have any questions. And Dorothy, thanks so much for your time today, and continued best of luck and success with your work. And I'm sure we will talk again sometime in the future.
All right. Glad to join you all today.
Enjoy your day. Thank you.
Yeah. Bye-bye.